Every startup begins with an ambitious founder and an idea, but what inspires them to take the leap into the entrepreneurial world? I'm Peter Jun Ho Sang, founder and CEO of Beyond Form, and welcome to our new founder series. I'll be sitting down with a few of our startup founders to hear about their journey as entrepreneurs in the fashion tech world. On today's episode, I'm sitting down with Juan Martinez, founder of AiiD, to talk about his personal journey of entrepreneurship. After taking one leap after another, Juan made the brave decision to leave his dream job in fashion to pursue a startup journey in the hope that he can disrupt the fashion industry. Facing a handful of no's, Juan pushed through and with his determination and drive has been able to build a successful business in digital fashion. Working with some of the biggest names from Burberry to Levi's, we learned how Juan has helped these brands make a change to their traditional design processes.
The new era of fashion, which I believe is going to be a hybrid. So we're going to have a digital and physical world combined for the customers as well.
Let's get stuck into Juan's founder journey on this episode of Venturing into Fashion Tech. How are you today, Juan?
I'm doing great. I had a hard morning. As you know, we wear many hats when you're a founder, so could be challenging at times, but yeah, I'm doing great.
Thanks for taking the time out of your day to record this episode with us about digital fashion, which is always a hot topic for our listeners. But before we get stuck into your founder journey, I'm just going to recap what's happening in the digital fashion space. So when we think of digital fashion, it can mean many things, but it's essentially visualizing fashion without physical products. It can be applied to NFT, augmented reality, to production and sampling, just to name a few use cases. In terms of the market size, it is expected to reach around $67 billion by 2027 and has a compound annual growth rate of around 187.61%. So it's growing very, very quickly as an industry, and you can tell us more about this a little bit later on, Juan. In terms of digital fashion, it has been heavily linked to NFTs, but the market is taking a downturn, especially with the crypto crash, as we've seen at the end of 2022. And interestingly, digital fashion house The Fabricant released yesterday via Vogue Business that they're actually going back to servicing fashion brands as it pursues a more sustainable and profitable business model. So I think that's going to be an interesting topic for us a little bit later on. But to start off with, Juan, tell us about your journey into fashion and specifically digital fashion.
All right. So if we go back to the beginnings of time, so I've always been interested in fashion and in creative things. I've been a creative person. Thankfully, though, I'm also very technical as well. So I've always been a very curious person. I grew up in a very small town to a father who is a dentist. So I followed on his steps and I went into dentistry school after high school. But 2 years into it, I dropped out to pursue my passion for fashion. I wanted to actually experiment and find out how clothing was made, what was going behind the scenes of this industry. I found out that it was actually a viable business that you could actually live out of, creating clothing, designing, manufacturing, etc. I went to Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. I was trained to be a person that is a creative person, but takes the side of business very seriously. And in a way, we are trying to create products that function within the world creatively in a more technical way, I should say. In the end, I ended up working for many brands, and I actually loved my journey. With digital fashion, I was actually working for a brand as the head of tech design. And I was giving a lot of freedom as to what to bring on to the table, being it different solutions, new technologies, new strategies. So I started to like think about where fashion was going. I started to bring on new solutions, new startups to help us kind of like understand what the future of fashion looked like. And the more I started to explore digital fashion, I realized that this was going to be the future. I realized then that that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to create a change to the status quo of the fashion industry, which I wasn't very happy with at the time. There was, as we all know, fashion has a lot of challenges and a lot of issues around it. And being it, ecological or just how we treat people, I felt that technology would allow me to fulfill that moral obligation. It was hard for me to do my job and look the other way at times. So I quit my job and I started my own business, helping different brands, initially brands that I already knew with, or companies that I had worked for, or I had people that was working inside. I started helping them understand what technology could do for them in terms of just strategizing for the future, or even implementing some solutions in a very small scale, some case studies, and just really just spreading the word and talking to designers and tech designers that were the most receptive at the time. Yeah, that's basically how I went from zero to where I am today, which is staying curious and staying true to what I am as a person. And I believe the fashion industry can't change without the help of technology, new solutions, and strategies to implement those solutions.
So curiosity is what founders need, and I completely agree with that. In terms of FIT, do you think that prepared you for the world of entrepreneurship and business? What was it like deciding to quit your job and then just doing your own thing?
Going to FIT, I think I do believe it did prepare me for a global vision. When I left, I had a global vision of what the business of fashion was about. I was very creative, but I was prepared to be in any part of the industry, not just on the creative side. So yes, to answer your question, yes, it did prepare me for this. To quit my job, it was actually, I had the job that I was dreaming for a long time. I had freedom within a large corporation, which is very hard to achieve. And
Where was this one? What job were you in?
So I was the head of tech design. So I was able to control I was in between the creative side and the product development side. So I was able to work with designers to edit down and merchandise the products, make sure that the products that we were making made sense financially, had a direction. And then on the other side, I was also working on product development, meaning making sure that the fit was right. We continue with like the repeat styles that were making money for the company, that they were renewed and stylized for the new trends, and that everything moved smoothly from design to production to having the samples on time and the production on time for the clients. I was very happy with it, but I felt that it wasn't fulfilling some of my needs, mainly on the fact that I didn't feel right on how the industry was handling certain issues. And I felt that I was being part of it and that I wasn't changing it. As much freedom as I had, I wasn't able to change that. from that seat. So I had to leave, and it was very, very difficult to do it.
So essentially you had frustration is what I'm hearing. And I think
I was a little frustrated, yes.
yeah, and I think out of frustration comes problems, then comes the best ideas, potentially. And you mentioned right there at the start of this episode, that your father is a dentist. How did your parents or your father take it specifically when you were like, I'm going to quit my job, I'm going to go be a fashion entrepreneur?
Well, the first shock to him came from me saying, okay, I'm quitting dentistry school and I'm going into fashion, right? So he was terrified. But yeah, when I told my family that I was going to quit my job, that they were very proud of, and I was very proud of, surprisingly, he was one of the people that supported me the most. And I'm very thankful for that, because he was very supportive of my dream, basically of pushing boundaries and doing things that went with my moral standards, or my vision for my life.
Unfortunately for us, you did stick it out with fashion. You didn't drop out of fashion school as well, which is good. Good for us. In terms of FIT, obviously they are a very well-known fashion school where they're still teaching students, the traditional pattern cutting, hand drawings, cut, make, and sew, the traditional way. So how did you find the transition from all of that traditional teaching into digital fashion design?
It did help in some way, because you have to be very strategic in the application of creativity, right? And I think technology has a lot of that going on. If you want to create solutions, yes, you're using data and you're using a lot of insights, but you got to be creative in the way you apply it. And you need to have your client in mind on every step. So in that sense, I think fashion is very similar. With FIT, they did help shape that side of me as a professional. But I had to train myself pretty much from scratch on how to use new technologies. And for example, pattern making, you go from drafting on a table to actually working with a digital platform that initially you have zero trust, because you have that mindset that there's no way this pattern that I'm creating digitally can translate into the real world and can actually create a good garment, right? So until you don't test it and you don't see it work well several times, it's very hard to actually trust new technology in fashion, because, which is one of the things I like about fashion is, yes, we're working in a very creative industry, but it is a very technical industry. If we don't create products that fit properly, that don't respond to a certain trend or to the user, it's not going to be sold, right? So we have to be good at what we do. So, and it's a constant challenge.
And now, do you trust the software? Do you believe in fashion tech and digital fashion specifically?
I do believe. I believe that we are not there yet, but that we can be. Fashion, as you know, digital fashion is moving super fast, and new solutions are coming to the forefront every day, and people is joining forces to create a synergy of technology in fashion that is going to help shape the new era of fashion, which I believe is going to be a hybrid. So we're going to have a digital and physical world, combined, and for the customers as well.
And you mentioned, though, obviously, that fashion isn't necessarily there yet with the adoption of technologies. And we see this all around the industry, not necessarily just within the scope of digital fashion, whether that's AI, for example, or it could be, you know, it took a long time for a lot of the e-commerce platforms to get rolled out, even though, of course, we've seen secondhand vintage for decades previously. I think the key word there is trust. Somehow, Juan, you've managed to turn some of the world's biggest brands into believers. They've trusted you. So just to roll off some of the names that you are working with. So you're working with Burberry, you've worked with Balmain, you've worked with Adidas, you've worked with Nike, you've worked with Levi's, just to name a few names there. So these are huge brands. How did you convince them to work with you? And I think this is going to be a question that a lot of our listeners will want to know the answer to.
Yes, the Holy Grail. Interestingly enough, I failed a lot, I must say. At the beginning, when you quit your job and you go into entrepreneurship, you are living off your savings, literally. So I used that time to educate and to knock on doors, and because I had worked in the industry for a long time, but by then I had a community. So I was able to knock on the right doors and challenge them to just try, or I was able to educate them on what was next and how they would benefit from the digital platforms, the digital workflows, pipelines that we were creating. It took a lot of work. Eventually, they started trusting more and more, but not fully, right? We were having some very small projects here and there, just testing the new technologies. I was drafting, I was almost acting as a consultant at times, drafting new pipelines for them to incorporate digital processes within the existing pipelines that they had. It was very messy and confusing at times, so it wasn't the best way to do it. But that was the way, I learned a lot from that as well. And it was going okay until COVID hit. All of those years prior that I've been knocking on doors and educating people and telling them to do this and that, when COVID hit, I was one of the first names that came to mind for them. So they were the ones now coming to me and saying, we need these new solutions. We have no idea how to use them. We don't have people that is trained. That was when the business kind of cemented, and I was able to acquire a lot of customers very quickly and apply all of that knowledge that I had and the refined processes that I had come up with. And I was able to tackle all of those customers very quickly and deliver for them on a very short time. But it wasn't done in a night to day. It took years, literally.
Yeah. So you didn't just get all of these amazing brands overnight, is essentially what you're saying.
I did not.
You had to spend a while educating them first. And you mentioned there that you spent the start living off your savings. How was it? How did you feel living off your savings whilst you're doing all of this education process, getting your name out there?
I think for the first 3 or 4 months, I was pretty okay with it. I was enjoying it. I had no stress. But then I started thinking, well, if this doesn't work, what do I do? Right? And then it was kind of okay, so I had to stick with it. And that's where I had my father and friends and everybody telling me, okay, you're in it. You got to finish it now, right? You already quit your job. You spend tons of money or whatever. So you got to keep it going, right? But after the 4th month and after seeing that people had no interest, at all. I was terrified, but I continued to do it because I had a vision. And I knew that that was the way to go, because that's where fashion was going. It was going to be there. Like all those customers that were saying no, or it's not for us right now, or I don't believe this is going to work out for us, or, we're like too big, too important for this, go to emerging designers. I knew that was going to change somehow. This was before COVID. I didn't know this was going to happen. COVID actually accelerated the digital implementation process and forced companies to trust new solutions. So it was, for the industry, I think it was actually good in the long run.
So as a founder, essentially what you displayed is grit. And I love that keyword, grit. I don't think enough new founders have grit to keep going. You've received a lot of no's, as you explained there. Did you have a plan B in case those no's kept on going?
I had a plan B, and it was, of course, going back to the industry, right? I mean, I am within the industry now, but by then I felt like an outsider. If this doesn't happen within the next year and a half, 2 years, I'm going back, because obviously you can't stay out of the work, quote unquote, for a very long time, because otherwise you lose context, you lose, touch. Your resume doesn't look that great. The longer you stay as an entrepreneur, the tougher it will get for you to go back, especially doing something no one was caring about, right? So it doesn't add anything to your resume. But still, my plan B was going back to, doing my old job. Thankfully, I didn't have to do it. I'm still an entrepreneur, and I'm enjoying it. With all the up and downs, I think it's I was built for this. I can't. I think I'm a little bit addicted to the uncertainty of things, and it kind of like it pushes you every morning to question things, be curious, challenge yourself, your team, and I just love it.
I love that. I completely resonate with you. Entrepreneurship is an addiction, and unless you do it, people outside entrepreneurship really don't understand why you do things at the weekend, why you're constantly thinking about the business, even if it's evening time or holiday time or whatever. It is an addiction. You just can't really wean yourself off of it. That's me anyway. I don't know about you.
I know, 100%. It's like it's 24/7. Even like sometimes, like last night I was having dinner. As you know, I'm now in Portugal, and whenever I travel, I like to have fun and do some work. But I was having a nice dinner, and I'm like, all I'm doing is like thinking about, as you know, I'm building a new solution. So I was thinking how it could actually affect other industries. And I'm like, I find myself like I'm having dinner, right, with a nice set of people, and I'm thinking about the business, right? But it's involuntary. It just comes to you.
So you've obviously had success with finding some great clients. You've taken a lot of learnings and insights. This has now led you onto the idea of AiiD. Can you tell our listeners, what is AiiD, and how did you get the idea for AiiD?
AiiD is a generative AI design platform that helps designers visualize their designs, styles, through the use of AI. So what I have done is, or I'm trying to do anyways, is make sure that designers can see their vision in 3D without actually having the need to learn to do 3D models or texturing and do the long journey to just basically see different styles, visualizations, and see if they like it or not. So I'm creating a platform that will allow fashion brands to become truly efficient on the way to creating products that make sense financially and will make money for them. So I'm thinking both on the creative side, but also on the business side for the different clients. My idea for this came from the challenges that I've seen with my clients and why they actually use my studio, right? Because they all have small teams within their companies, or they get trained by the different software companies. There's not enough know-how on their side to create visual assets that represent what they want to represent quick enough. I mean, you can take a very long time and eventually get to what you wanted, but you lost so much time and it's really not efficient. Earlier, I was talking about how we're not there yet. It's because, yes, we have all these 3D solutions, but it really takes a very well-trained designer to make things efficient. And it takes a lot of time to create these assets, which is a misconception that many corporations also have, is that if it's digital, it's not real, so it's very easy to make and it's fast. But in actuality, it's not. It takes a lot of skills, a lot of hours, and it takes also a great deal of technology involving hardware that needs to be there available for the teams. So it's truly a big commitment. So I'm trying to get all of this out of the table and allow the designers and merchandisers and the different teams to collaborate and to design.
So you mentioned there that there's a lot of commitment that needs to be had in terms of implementing digital fashion, all the design processes, all of the knowledge and skills. So what advice do you give to anybody that's aspiring to become a digital fashion designer? How difficult is it in reality?
The only advice I guess I would give them is don't quit. It is not easy. It's tough, and it takes a lot of hours of you just sitting in front of a computer and just, if you don't feel it within one day, the first day, don't do it, because it's gonna just frustrate you and it's not gonna be for you, right? Because there is a lot of challenges that come with creating a digital asset, and you have to be a problem solver. There are problems constantly, and you need to know how to solve them. And if you don't know it, you need to find out how. And that's how you do it. So if you're not that kind of person, don't do it.
Just keep going, essentially, which is a bit ironic because for fashion designers, quite often they have to problem solve with how to make a garment and so forth. But it's just adding on that extra layer of complexity with digital fashion. I've met many designers that just give up on the first mouse click, to be honest, with digital fashion. So you have to, it's like learning any new software. It's like driving a car, really. You have to keep going until you can do it. Otherwise, you just give up, essentially. So I just want to finish off this episode, Juan, with a round of quick fire questions. The first answer that comes to your head. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You're ready. Last digital fashion item that you designed?
It was a long rain jacket.
Which brand is doing digital fashion the best?
Some people is going to get upset at this. I think Under Armour.
Under Armour, okay. Hand-drawn or digitally drawn?
Hand-drawn.
Oh, so you still love to do hand drawing. You haven't lost that hand drawing element.
No, I have not. I think it is so important that we draft by hand because it's our first draft, right? And then we kind of like edit it and make it beautiful or whatever, perfected in digital.
Clothes 3D or browseware? Or neither?
Wow. My technical side is calling for browseware.
And one tip to digital fashion founders:
listen to your customers and try to make sure what you do aligns with their vision for their company.
Thank you very much, Juan.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to click follow to keep up to date with the latest episodes. And if you like this episode, please give us a review. If you want us to feature a specific theme or guest, please give us a message at beyondform.io. I will see you very soon.